Something strange is happening in the forests of eastern North America. A native tree that many people spend years searching for is suddenly becoming more common. It's spreading. It's producing more young plants. And in some forests, it's forming dense thickets that seem to be taking over the understory. But here's the strange part. This isn't an invasive species. It's a native tree with a fruit so unusual that many people compare its flavor to a tropical dessert. Foragers love it. Native plant enthusiasts seek it out. And now, scientists have discovered that this mysterious tree may be increasing across much of its natural range. So what's causing it? Why is this plant suddenly thriving? And could the very changes happening inside our forests be giving it the perfect opportunity to spread? The tree behind this mystery has a name: Pawpaw. And its story is far more surprising than you might expect. Some people say pawpaw leaves smell like a strange mix of green peppers and motor oil. Sounds unpleasant, right? But that strange smell may actually be one of the reasons pawpaw is thriving. Those unusual aromas come from the plant's natural chemical defenses. And these chemicals can help protect pawpaw from hungry insects, and even one of the biggest threats facing young trees in eastern forests today: white-tailed deer. Deer love eating the leaves and stems of many young trees. But pawpaw, they usually leave it alone. Not every deer, not in every forest. But compared with trees like oak, pawpaw is often much less likely to be eaten. And that gives pawpaw a huge advantage. Think about what happens when thousands of deer are constantly browsing through a forest. They don't eat every plant equally. They pick their favorites, and over time, the trees they love disappear faster, while the trees they avoid get a chance to grow. Pawpaw may be one of those winners. So, in forests with large deer populations, pawpaw can slowly gain ground while other tree species struggle to regenerate. But here's the thing. Deer aren't the whole story. There's another force that has been shaping North American forests for thousands of years, and it's something we often think of as destructive: fire. Now, I'm not talking about massive wildfires that burn everything in their path. I'm talking about smaller, low to moderate intensity fires. These fires can actually help certain trees survive while keeping other species in check. Before European settlement, fire was a natural part of many North American ecosystems. Lightning started some fires, but humans started many others. For generations, indigenous peoples used fire to manage landscapes, encourage useful plants, improve hunting areas, and shape the forests around them. As a result, many forests stayed relatively open, dry, and sunny, and they were often dominated by fire-adapted trees like oak, hickory, and pine. But then everything began to change. As European settlement expanded across North America, the way humans used fire changed dramatically. In some places, fires became more frequent and more intense during the 1800s and early 1900s. In other places, fire was increasingly suppressed, and that change would eventually transform the forests themselves. But what does all of this have to do with pawpaw? As it turns out, quite a lot. By the 1930s, something major had changed. Fire suppression had become the new normal. Across much of eastern North America, natural fires were being put out, and fires that once shaped the landscape became far less common. But what happens when you remove fire from a forest for decades? Look around. In many eastern forests, the pattern is becoming clear. Fire-adapted trees are struggling to regenerate, while trees that don't handle fire well are becoming more common. And pawpaw, it happens to be one of them. With its smooth, thin bark, pawpaw is highly sensitive to fire. But there's an important detail. Pawpaw isn't suddenly spreading everywhere. It naturally prefers moist places, like river valleys, floodplains, and rich, damp forests where fires were probably less frequent in the past. But these wet habitats didn't exist in isolation. They were surrounded by larger landscapes that once experienced regular fire. And when those fires became less common, the natural barriers that once limited pawpaw's spread began to weaken. Slowly, the forest started changing. Drier, more open landscapes began shifting toward forests that were cooler, darker, and more humid. And this transformation has a name: mesophication. It's a complicated word, but the idea is simple. Less fire creates more shade and moisture, and pawpaw seems to like that new environment. But pawpaw isn't the only tree benefiting from this change. Species like red maple, black cherry, and tulip tree are also becoming more successful as fire disappears. Still, there's one more piece of the puzzle. Because fire isn't the only thing changing eastern forests, something much smaller has also been playing a role. Something that can attack an entire forest: insects and disease. And this may be another reason pawpaw is becoming more common. But here's the interesting part. The insects weren't attacking pawpaw, they were attacking the trees around it. One of the biggest examples is the emerald ash borer, an invasive insect that has killed millions of ash trees across eastern North America. In many forests, especially in wet areas and river bottoms, ash trees have declined dramatically. Some have almost disappeared from the canopy. And ash isn't the only one. Dutch elm disease has devastated elm trees. Butternut canker has done the same to butternut trees, and every time a major tree species disappears, something happens. Space opens up. More sunlight reaches the forest floor. More room becomes available. And nearby plants like pawpaw get a chance to move in. But pawpaw has another advantage. Once it gets established, it doesn't just grow upward. It spreads underground. Its root system sends up new shoots, creating more and more stems over time. One plant can become many. And after years or even decades, those stems can grow into a dense, sprawling clonal patch. The canopy becomes so thick that very little sunlight reaches the ground, and that can make it difficult for other tree species to get established. But there's one final piece of this story, and this time, it's us. It's easy to think that humans have only harmed native plants. But the relationship between people and pawpaw is much more complicated. Long before European settlers arrived, indigenous peoples may have helped spread pawpaw beyond its natural range. By carrying and planting its seeds, they likely helped shape the distribution of pawpaw that we see today. Then everything changed. European settlement brought widespread logging, agriculture, and major changes to the landscape. As forests disappeared, many local pawpaw populations disappeared with them. But today, the relationship has changed again. Pawpaw has become one of the most celebrated native trees in North America. Conservation groups plant it, native plant enthusiasts grow it, foragers search for its fruit, and all of this may be helping pawpaw increase in some areas. Which brings us back to the question we started with. Is the rise of pawpaw a good thing or a bad thing? The answer isn't as simple as you might think. On one hand, pawpaw is a native tree with an edible fruit. It's part of the natural ecosystem, and it's an important host plant for the beautiful zebra swallowtail butterfly. So, in many ways, seeing more pawpaw sounds like great news. But there's another side to the story. Pawpaw's rise may also be telling us something about the forests themselves. It may be a sign that the natural forces that once shaped these forests, like fire, insects, disease, and human land management, have changed dramatically. And when those forces change, the forest changes with them.